What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Just grabbing some numbers here and a few speculations. We're talking crypto today. It's not your gig. Well, you know, not your video, but this could be very valuable video in the future. Time will tell. We'll see. I'm looking at the price of Bitcoin today. It looks like we're sitting around 58,000, and then Monero sitting around $230 the 1st of December. Found this great clip. I'm going to try to roll this clip for you right now.
Clearly gold is fungible. I can melt down a gold base and I can create gold coins. And it's 100% the same. It's fungible in that way. Bitcoin does not have that. It's the weakest part of the Bitcoin story would be the fungibility factor. And to the extent that Monero solves that fungibility factor is needed, okay? That's why I say it's going to be one of the coins in the top 2 or 3 coins going forward. You know, I've been saying that about Monero since Monero came out.
So that is Max Keiser. He's got a lot of respect for this guy. He's a little crazy, and I love that. He's on the right side of history. Let's put it that way. Max is definitely on the right side of history. He tried in the 2010, 2009 era of doing a silver squeeze, a little bit premature. Now we see it with Reddit and Wall Street Silver, so that's happening. But his whole thing was like, we need to crush the back of the fiat financial system, fiat meaning by decree or fake. And he found Bitcoin early on, became a Bitcoin evangelist, and he's done a lot for the brand of Bitcoin. But what's interesting about that clip is that he acknowledges that Monero has a certain feature or quality that Bitcoin does not possess. It's speculation, but some would say that the founding team or founder of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, is potentially also the people behind Monero, and that they had fixed certain flaws that Bitcoin had. Now, as a store of value, Bitcoin, hands down, it's a fixed supply. People lose their coins all the time. And so over time, you can expect, as demand continues and people like Max are out there building that demand increases, supply stays the same, price goes up. That's why people want cryptocurrencies. And it's a stock to flow model. And if you look at it in a graph, if you were, fiat currencies are stable in price in the short term, meaning day to day, but they're consistently falling in value in the long term. So fiat currencies are stable, but they're always falling in value. Whereas cryptocurrencies, let's just talk Bitcoin, is unstable. It's getting more stable as time goes on, but it's relatively unstable in the short time. You can have 20% swings, 50% swings. But in the long term, it's continually appreciating in value. And so there's this cross section where if you're storing value for long periods of time, you probably want to look at something like Bitcoin. But if you're storing it for a shorter period of time, like you're going to spend it tomorrow, you probably want to be in whatever currency that you're planning on spending it at, until we move to what the maxis would like to see as a Bitcoin-dominated world, which is a possibility, but not really, because the block sizes and there's some technical limitations, and people say, but layer 2, bro, but layer 2. The issue I want to bring up with it is that typically at this point in time, they're using ASICs on a program called 256, which means you can build a computer that particularly mines Bitcoin, and you need cheap energy, which is awesome, because this is going to lead the energy revolution. The people with the cheapest energy, instead of storing that energy in a battery, are going to be able to store it in money and then move it with a click of a mouse anywhere in the world. It's an incredibly mind-blowing concept. And I'm not saying that Bitcoin is not going to be the lead horse throughout possibly this century, but certainly this decade. But what I am saying is that Monero has fungibility. And when these governments get draconian and they get real, right now they're patsying around. You think Australia's bad? Australia's nothing. Wait until they go and do what they say they want to do. Wait until it gets really gnarly. Not like the military is picking you up, but they're holding down your children. They're taking your wife. Like, they're inflating the currency. There's no food on the shelves. Wait until we get to that spot. That's when Monero's going to shine. That's when people are going to go, Monero, it's untrackable, untraceable. How can I get some? If the stock to flow model doesn't work as well with Monero because it's harder to get. Exchanges are scared of it. It's used on the dark web. Well, you can mine it on your own laptop. I mean, you really can. If you've got a decent laptop, gaming computer, you can get about one a year right now. But as demand for Monero goes up, you'll get less and less. But how much do you really need? I just want to put it on your radar as a speculation. It's literally my favorite cryptocurrency is Monero, because money to me must be private. It must be a store of value, and it must be private. Even cash doesn't have that much privacy. You can trace serial numbers on bills if you really want to. It's imperfect. There's imperfect information there, but it's not fully private. Gold and silver, great private form of payment, particularly because it's fungible. I can melt down silver or gold, and every unit is equal to every other unit, and I can create a different form. I can turn it into a different type of coin. I can make a Trav coin. I can do whatever, but it's the same ounce of silver, and it has an actual use case, which is why it's real money. But for cryptocurrency, and as far as using it as currency, I love the idea of Monero, because it's fully private, not traceable. There's always some government that's like, we're gonna find a way to trace it, but then the devs, the developers, are always, it's a cat and mouse game. So maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's a cat and mouse game, and essentially what we're doing is we're creating untrackable way to process payments amongst individuals, which means we're actually possibly gonna see the end of real human slavery. All of us are subject and property of our governments. But it's possible that we may actually go back to the original American dream, which is the government is for the people, by the people. They work for us. But the way that we do that is we must remove the money printer from the elites. We have to take back control of the money. And Monero makes a very interesting case, and I know we're gonna have cyber hornets on here, all the Bitcoin people. Look, I've been around Bitcoin since $3 in 2011, and my roommates were getting it by mining it on our own electricity in our rental house. That was cool. We would get Bitcoin by getting it from other dudes that would mine it. It was a small little weird libertarian area where you could do that outside of DC. I mean, that's what it was. But as it got more competitive and it became a real good store of value, as we knew it kind of would, as it became really awesome, and it is what it is today as they're printing money. I mean, out of nowhere. I mean, you see March 2020, Bitcoin, though people don't like to talk about this, but it went to $3,500. Now it's at like 60 grand. But it went to $3,500. It's volatile. But it's also traceable and trackable. And when governments confiscate it, and they do through auctions and things like that. We actually had a friend of ours in DC who got nailed with Bitcoin transactions. You might have heard of him. His name is Ross. There's an amazing documentary out there. The government screwed him over and gave him 220 years in prison. I've had beers with that guy. He's an incredible guy. And hopefully these governments fail at some point in time and we go get Ross out, because it's obnoxious. It's just inhumane. It's just, I don't even want to go down that road right now, because it's absolutely wicked and horrible and evil and immoral, and these governments should not exist at any level. I would rather pledge allegiance to the Google gods than a government that does so at the point of a gun. I voluntarily exchange value with Google, and if they mistreat me, I will go elsewhere. Not so with the government. But nonetheless, private forms of payment are something that's missing from cryptocurrencies as they currently are. There are a few private ones out there. Pirate Chain is interesting. I like that. I got a really small one that I really like. I'm kind of playing with it and really doing my research on it before I put it out there, but I really like where it is, where it's at. And I understand that there are layer 2s and layer 3s and the lightning layer Trav and all that, right? But if your base layer is known, if you look at the price of a Bitcoin after it's been confiscated by government, it sells at a premium because it's been washed. The sins have been washed away. It's clean now. We know where it came from. It came from a government, and it came from a government auction, so you can trust it. Certain Bitcoins will be mined with renewable energy and have a higher value. People like Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank mention this all the time. I'm not saying that's not an amazing store of value. I'm just saying that every Bitcoin is not equal to every other Bitcoin, and that's a major problem. And so, something like Monero is fungible and is mineable on regular CPUs and phones and regular laptops, and each computer gets one vote. So it does diversify out the network substantially, and it's something to look at. I'm not saying that it's the end all be all. I'm not saying it's Bitcoin 2.0, although the supply does meet in 29 or 32. I did the graph, the spreadsheet. I'll include it here. I'll do a screenshot. put it up there for you guys. But that possibility, it's interesting how the supplies are identical, kind of when these governments are going to be going full 1930s Germany mode, So it's interesting, and it's also interesting that you don't need an exchange. I don't want exchange. Exchanges didn't even exist when Bitcoin was first out. You had to be part of the network to get it. And I think that that's the proper way to run cryptocurrency. Now, I understand, we're not going to get $1 million Bitcoin unless, there's exchanges and ways for big players to be able to dump money into it. I get it. I totally get it. But the whole point of cryptocurrency to me is that we're all running a network, and that we're trading our electricity and our computing power in exchange for money. We're storing a battery of energy and money that we can transmit anywhere in the world at any point in time and trade for goods and services. And we must do so privately. And Lightning Network, it's a mess, and no one wants to really acknowledge that, but it's a freaking mess. But also, if I know who originally had the coin and then it went to the Lightning Network, I can still kind of tax it, I can still trace it, and heaven forbid that person is an enemy of any local thug organization called the government, that coin may not have the same value as one that's been washed by the elites. I just think that we need Monero, and that's all. And so take a look at it. I think it's an interesting speculation. I think if nothing else, it's going to ratio very closely with Bitcoin. What's that ratio going to be? I don't know, 1 to 20, 1 to 100. It would be an improvement from where it is now. 1 to 10. And then would it overtake Bitcoin? I don't know. I don't think that the culture is ready for that yet. I don't think that we're ready for fully private, sovereign individuals yet. So I wouldn't say that's going to be a 1-to-1. But if there is a hiccup with Bitcoin, I feel like people look in the direction and go, what are my other options? Monero is going to be in your top 3. And I think it's early days. It's been around for a long time at this point, 7 years. If a technology makes it more than 10 years, it's called the Alindi effect. The statistical probability that it'll make it an additional 10 years goes up dramatically. Bitcoin is now over 10 years, click. Litecoin is over 10 years, click. Dogecoin almost there, next. Those would be my top 3 public coins. But as far as privacy goes, Monero is the original gangster. It's what's used on the dark web. It's what governments hate. They're fearful of it. And I think that you should give it a look in the right direction. And before, Max went totally woke on Bitcoin, Max is a fan. And I would bet Max still holds some, just in case. Thanks for watching.